Hey guys, welcome back to the Order in Progress podcast. This is your host, Will Safford, and today's guest is a very special guest. We've got Phil Daru. Phil is extremely knowledgeable on strength and conditioning for combat sports. He is the former head strength and conditioning coach at the American Top Team down in Coconut Creek, Florida, where a bunch of UFC champions train, just guys competing at the highest level. And Phil was the former head strength and conditioning coach down there. He just moved to open his own facility where he's going to continue to train athletes for combat sports, UFC, judo, jiu-jitsu, grappling, and Phil is just full of knowledge for combat sports. He's got a degree in sports medicine and exercise science. He was named the best strength and conditioning coach in the state of Florida, and he also walks the walk. He was a former pro MMA fighter for 8 years. He trains jiu-jitsu himself, and he was also a Division I football player. So I was lucky enough to go down and meet Phil a couple of months ago, and he's a great guy, super fun to be around and super knowledgeable when it comes to all aspects of just performance training, from strength and conditioning to mobility, flexibility to diet, supplementation, nutrition, really everything. So we've got a great podcast for you guys lined up here. Phil just drops knowledge bombs left and right, things that you can do, just start adding to your game pretty much today to start improving your performance. So hope you guys enjoy the episode. As always, you can check us out at seekprogress.com, on Instagram at seek.progress. And, we've got a bunch of free information for you guys, including a free ebook, which is the top 5 mobility moves for jiu-jitsu that will help you prevent injury while you're on the mats. So make sure you go and check that out. But without further ado, I introduce Phil Daru. All right, so we're back with Phil Daru. Phil, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It's crazy times right now, but we're hanging in there. Thanks for having me on too, by the way, Will. I appreciate it.
For sure, man. I mean, that's really all we can do is just take it step by step. Now, you just kind of told me that you've got some new plans going forward. Can you tell us about where you're at right now as far as coaching?
Yeah. Well, currently, right now, I'm opening up my own facility. We've been open for a few weeks now. I left American Top Team. There was a couple of things that I needed to get handled from a personal side, on top of the fact that it was just my time to go. I wanted to work with other athletes, in different sporting worlds, not just in MMA, but just all around. So that's given me the opportunity to open up my own space with an individual by the name of Mo Vaughn, who is ex-baseball player, played for the Red Sox and the Twins and a couple other teams. And I guess if we're talking about the older population, you know who Mo Vaughn is. The younger people probably don't know. That's what I'm saying. So, it's funny because he came to ATT to train with me. I didn't know who he was when he walked in the door. I just knew that it's a big dude, and I'm like, okay. And then I remember Conan telling me, we got an ex-baseball player, played in the major leagues. You probably know who he is. His name is Mo Vaughn. And I didn't put 2 and 2 together. And I was like, all right, yeah, cool, whatever. Because a lot of athletes, a lot of celebrities come to the gym. And so I'm like, okay, no problem. And when I started training them, I researched into it more. And just so happened that my father and my whole side of my dad's family is from Boston. So they're big Mo Vaughn fans. So I told my dad about him, and he was like, get the hell out of here. Super excited for me. And I'm just like, yeah. He's like a retired baseball player, man. I don't know. But yeah, so it's fun. I started training him, and then I started training his daughter, and he opened up his own facility for batting, for hitting techniques and more skills training per se. Right. And he was like, man, I'd really like to get you in there to work with some of the baseball players. And I was like, I don't really know, because I don't work with baseball guys right now. I'm knee deep in MMA. Mm-hmm. So that was like a year ago. And then, time passed, and he started to get more notoriety with his gym. Now he was starting in like a 5,000 square foot facility. Now we're in a 10,000 square foot facility. And now we turned it into not just baseball, but sports in general. So now it's Vaughn's Sports Academy instead of Vaughn's Baseball Academy. And that was primarily because I came into the situation. And then from there, I opened up another facility on the side in the meantime before I left ATT to do more boot camp style training and then just bring the fighters away from the gym, away from American Top Team, just to get a new feel for stuff and to have my equipment, to work with my equipment, you know, in my environment when it comes to strength and conditioning. And so we've been doing that for, I want to say, about 3 months. And now that we have the opportunity with Mo Vaughn, I'm moving all of the stuff over to Boca. And so I'll have those two facilities there in Boca, where Boca Raton, Florida, South Florida. And we'll be working with all sports, including boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, and MMA. So really excited. It's a new beginning for me. Mm-hmm. Again, I've owned my own facility. I own my own gym since I was 22 years old, but I never had the influence that I had before that right. I do now. So now it's even better. You know, people are coming from out of the country. People are coming from out of the state just to watch and see the gym and meet me, which is humbling in itself. I don't even know why people just want to come meet me. That right there kind of is a little crazy for me. But at the end of the day, I'm humbled by it, and I do appreciate the support that I get from every individual. It's outstanding.
Well, I think, you know, one of the things is that, man, you talk the talk, but you also walk the walk. Like, man, you put out some awesome content, always putting stuff out on your Instagram. You're a hustler. You know, that's what I find. Like, this guy, Mo Vaughn, he's probably going to take the same intensity that he put into baseball and he's going to put it into this new business. And the same thing with you. You're an ex-MMA fighter, ex-football player, you know, and that's great, man. Congratulations on that.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I mean, we are definitely like-minded. And that's the good thing, is like we get along with each other too as well. When I first met him, I knew that there was going to be a long-standing relationship there. And he understands that strength and conditioning is very important, which is something that, you know, a lot of skills coaches or a lot of ex-athletes don't really understand in a way.
Yeah.
You know, and not saying everyone, just the chosen few that I've come across that don't really understand why people are doing strength and conditioning, but there is a means to it. You know, again, when two people have equal amount of skill and talent, the one that's going to be the X factor is the one that's actually stronger and more powerful, has that physical capability. So with that, you know, he sees the importance in that, and that's like a breath of fresh air, man, when you're actually wanted and you're celebrated in your own house, which is also very important, you know. Not to say that I didn't get that at ATT, but it's just, again, from all sporting worlds. I know a lot of coaches that I have on my mentorship, they go through those situations a lot. And a lot of them are in the collegiate setting, right? They work for major universities, Division I's, and they don't even get that from their coaches and their upper management. So, you know, it's a blessing to have that type of you know, I guess the word would be appreciation to what you do as a profession, and that's what's going to help us go further and further down the line and grow this thing into what I know can be very successful.
Man, I mean, you teed me up right there. You know, ever since I started training jiu-jitsu, I've always felt that the guy who is strong, flexible, mobile, has endurance, you know, that's going to, of course, you have to have the technique. But if you have all those other factors on top, you know, you're just going to be unstoppable. So specifically, you know, you've worked with a lot of grapplers, a lot of fighters. What do you find is like the biggest benefit from strength training for jiu-jitsu or grappling?
Understanding body awareness, movement capabilities, stability in certain ranges, mobility if they don't have it, especially in the thoracic and the hips, posterior chain strength too as well. That's something when it comes down to jiu-jitsu. I know you got a lot of jiu-jitsu listeners. They lack that ability because they're always in that flexion state, or especially if they pull guard, the guard players, you know, they don't get a whole lot of activation there, especially in their glutes. So increasing the strength there in the backside is going to, one, mitigate injury, and then also enhance the quality of movement and strength in those ranges of positions that they're going to be in. And again, it helps with defense because of the fact that you're able to get out of these certain positions and be strong in those positions instead of just being flexible to get in there. So I always say mobility, stability, and then strength. And then flexibility is good to have, but again, mobility is the X factor. That's going to be having that ability to get into a range, but also be strong in that range.
Right. Now, I've seen some of your videos. You know, I've actually been down to your facility. I've seen your facility. But like for jiu-jitsu, what are some of the main methods that you prescribe to your athletes? Is it strength training? Is it, energy system training? Like, what is like the main thing that you do?
Again, it depends on the individual. Like that's primarily, I hate to say that because everybody says that nowadays, but what it is we're looking at it from the situation, the circumstances, and individual differences. Yeah. So if the athlete does lack mobility, then that's what we have to put as a focus point, right? If the athlete lacks strength, just general strength, then that's a focus point. So it really does depend on that individual. And that's why having a solid system of assessment protocols is important in the beginning so that you can understand what the athlete actually needs. Understanding yourself, if you're training yourself, you need to know, okay, what do you suck at and what are you good at? You want to maintain what you're good at, but you want to put the focus on your weak points so that you can basically bridge the gaps, So with that being said, it's just finding out what's important for that particular time, whether it be conditioning in an aerobic zone, working on your alactic capacity, which is basically your ability to repeat bouts of high intensity, whether it be, soft tissue work for the joints, if your joints ache, whether it be joint mobilization, working on mobility, working on active end range control. These things are, again, like I said, situational and subjective to the individual. But, for the most part, you have those three criteria. You want to make sure that you have optimal mobility in each joint capsule up the kinetic chain. You want to have strength in end ranges. You want to be strong relative to the body weight that you have so that you can maneuver your body in all different directions without having to put any extra effort. So then your conditioning stays on point. And then obviously you want to have the endurance to get through a training session or through a tournament, depending on what you're doing.
Right. Now, when I was down there, I think you were telling me that you are a big fan of like Louis Simmons and the Conjugate Method. Is that something that if someone was trying to get strong for jiu-jitsu, is that something that they should look into?
I mean, I'm biased because I've utilized the Conjugate Method for most of all my athletes, and it's always worked for them. Again, I'm not married, and I'm not married to one methodology. I don't like to live in absolutes. I'm just giving you common occurrences, and success leaves clues. So with that being said, yes, I do like a conjugate concurrent style of an approach because they're constantly training throughout the entire year. Now, if you do have a certain tournament that you want to work towards and you can phase it out and you do understand proper phase potentiation and you can do some sort of block or daily undulation, anything or even a linear progression, just a basic linear progression, especially if they have, not so long history in the weight room, anything that they do, they're going to adapt to. Mm-hmm. So you can be successful with that. But what I'm talking about from a long-term perspective, and also not beating up the joints in the same movement pattern day in, day out, it's more sustainable and you have more of the ability to increase all these other demands throughout the year. And so you'll never detrain, which is important because you want to be ready at all times to take a tournament or, to just train appropriately to get better,
Yeah, I mean, the jiu-jitsu athlete's a different animal because there really is no like season. Football players have seasons. Even MMA fighters, they know, all right, this is a big camp. We're going to focus on these 8 weeks before the camp. The jiu-jitsu guy, he's got a tournament every other weekend if he wants. For you, it must be a lot about like balancing overtraining, balancing the whole program, right?
Yeah, and that's also why I like the Conjugate Method, because you have the ability to auto-regulate at any point in time. So like for instance, if we have something, let's say like one of my guys that's a judo practitioner, they go through similar things. They always compete because they need to bring up their rankings in order to get to the Olympics. So we have Two of my judo athletes that are trying to make, the next Olympic Games, and obviously got pushed back, but they have to do like 3 or 4 competitions and podium on those competitions. So they have to compete a lot. And the same thing for jiu-jitsu. There's a tournament almost every weekend. So yeah, the goal for them is to make sure that we can gain that stimulus, but not overtrain them and work on that fatigue management. And the way to do that is to auto-regulate on spot if we need to. So if an athlete comes in and they're beat up, banged up from training, and we had something in there that said, okay, we needed to do max effort deadlifts that day or whatever, right? I can taper that off and we just do sets of 5 or repetition effort. And it's not going to hinder the overall progression because, again, they're always working that anyways. But if you have a set system that's like, okay, you're doing this on this day, this on this day, this on this day, and you have to cater or auto-regulate that may interfere with the total progression of the program. As opposed to being able to auto-regulate on a daily basis. So yes, that's another reason why I do like Conjugate, because you're constantly, managing fatigue through the program itself,
Man, it's, I don't envy you, man. It's like, it's gotta be such a task trying to manage all of these people, especially pro fighters, because these guys just want to go put on the gas all the time, but there's so many different variables that you have to work into this thing to get them to peak at the right time for a fight.
Yeah. I mean, the guys that have been with me know, like the veterans that I have, like Dustin and like, a lot of the people that I work with, they understand their body a little bit more, and they know when they need to push it, they know when they need to back off, just due to experience. But the younger guys, it is a lot harder, because they don't know. They don't know, what they're doing in certain skills training is going to hinder what they're doing in the weight room and vice versa. So like for that, they have to understand the bioenergetic demands of the sport. They have to understand fatigue management. They have to understand proper recovery and restoration techniques. And that comes with the coach, informing them on proper ways to do that. Mm-hmm. So with that, a lot of what I do is more teaching than actual like instructing, in a way, if that makes sense, right? Not just sets and reps, counting sets and reps, or, counting tempos. It's really just educating them on how to properly recover, on how to properly go about, programming and scheduling out their training sessions so that, again, they can recover and keep going throughout the camps. But in the beginning, like I said, with a lot of the new guys, they just want to go full go. Yeah. And a lot of these guys don't have a large experienced background in strength and conditioning, but also in just sports in general. A lot of these guys just come straight from just fighting, right? I'll bring it up again. Dustin didn't do any other sport but fight. Like all he did since he was 16 was fight. So he doesn't know. I had to like kind of show him, through the years, on how to program and how to plan and how to recover and why it's important to take rest days and off days and taper and all this other stuff, because he just didn't know it, and all he knew was just get in there and grind it out each and every day. Same thing goes with a lot of the guys that don't have that sporting background. Now, the guys that do, it's a lot easier to kind of get them to understand the process. Like a guy like Greg Hardy, for instance, would be a good, explanation of that, because Greg Hardy's played in the NFL. He's been playing a team sport, since he was a kid. So for him, it's a lot easier for somebody like Dean Thomas to regulate him and keep him, in the straight and narrow. And because he kind of knows how his body reacts to certain situations, it's a lot easier for him to either rev up or bring it down, Yeah. So again, you got to know that, again, it goes back to knowing the individual, knowing their personality, and then also knowing their background.
It's kind of, I feel like MMA is getting to that point where we're really starting to treat it like a professional sport, where we've got strength and conditioning coaches and, the UFC Performance Institute and things like that. But jiu-jitsu, man, it's like, just like you're saying, a lot of these guys have never done any type of like real sport training and just have their foot on the gas all the time. So it's nice because we're getting guys who have a lot of knowledge like you, who are coming into the sport and saying, all right, we got to we got to change some things here.
Yeah.
But you just spoke about a lot about recovery, and I think that's huge for the jiu-jitsu guy, just because they're competing, training all the time. What are some of your favorite things for recovery, or some of your best advice for recovery?
A lot of the things are really simple. I could say, all the technology in the world, under the sun, and I know that a lot of people like the gadgets, but really just going for a simple walk outside, especially if it's a nice day out, just walking and clearing your head and breath work will do wonders for your recovery. Again, nothing will beat sleep, proper sleep, like in deep REM sleep, and then proper nutrition, getting the right amount of fuel to recover from, whether it be carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and then making sure that you have the right nutrient count. So caloric intake needs to be on point too as well. But, other things like ice baths and hot, cold contrast baths, things of that nature, that does help with inflammation. Turmeric, another anti-inflammatory. Ginger, another anti-inflammatory. So I like to do a ginger and turmeric mix. And then also, a massage, any type of Graston, any type of cupping, dry needling, and yoga, but really light intensity yoga, not like hot yoga or something that you're getting deep into, like just kind of flow. And even like going for a swim in the pool or, in the ocean or something along the lines of that, something that's really just going to keep blood flow and get your mind off of the stresses of training in general, is going to be really good.
That was great info, man. One thing you just touched on was the breath work. I know we were talking a little bit about that when I was down there. Can you just get into that a little bit? What is, how do you use the breath work? Is there a specific method that you follow?
I mean, Wim Hof does have a great method when it comes down to CO2. And then also I usually use Buteyko methods, which is basically opposite of Wim Hof. And you're talking about CO2 saturation, which helps the body cope with that carbon dioxide buildup. Breathing is something that you can do to enhance your energy, but also bring down anxiety. So I'll use that for the beginning of the workout and at the end. Just depends on the tempo that we're going to be utilizing. There's something called maximal expansion breathing that's going to increase the sympathetic nervous system, where you're actually breathing more intense, and you're breathing in more action-based, where I'm breathing in very, very controlled, but also intensely, and I'm blowing out intensely. And you'll do that for, let's say, 1 to 2 minutes. And the goal really, again, is to increase that sympathetic nervous system to get the body revved up, ready to go. We also do breath holds. We'll do maximal breath holds with a pacing. So that will consist of you giving a normal breath in, a normal breath out, and then walking for as long as you can in a solid pace. And then what that basically does is that's going to saturate the body with CO2. Once it saturates the body with CO2, the body can cope with that. You're also putting your body in a high sympathetic state, but you're also increasing core temperature. So there's plenty of things going on there from a warm-up standpoint. What we also seen is that if you do that, and studies have shown, on top of what I've seen, is that if you do 5 repetitions of those maximum expansion breathing, the maximum breath holds, and then you take about a 2-minute break and do another 5, you can increase your VO2 max by about 15% for up to 90 minutes. So it's like you are spending time in high altitude for up to 90 minutes. So we like to do that before the training, and we like to do that before fights and competitions. I've had a couple of guys at jiu-jitsu competitions that actually did this before their match, and they found that they were able to breathe a lot more efficiently, even through tough times, like, when they're going through scrambles or even when they're getting smashed on top or whatever the case, they're able to control their breathing. And that's very important for buffering out lactate and things of that nature. So another thing when it comes down to recovery is working through diaphragmatic breathing with a 90-90 position. So basically being able to breathe diaphragmatically 360 degrees throughout the lumbar spine. And what that does is that gives the body the ability to bring the body back down to a parasympathetic state, which is your rest digest state. And that's going to bring down the stress. That's going to help jumpstart your recovery process. And that's a little bit more slow, controlled breathing, where you're really focusing on getting maximal oxygen in and blowing all of that CO2 out, but you're doing it through the diaphragm and not the upper cavity.
Man, that's great info. I feel like breathing is the one area, at least in jiu-jitsu, that a lot of people are neglecting. And it's just, I think in all aspects of life, understanding the breath and the different types of methods that you can use to improve all different types of things, from focus to relaxation to getting more excited, getting the body to go for a fight or something like that. That was great stuff, man.
No doubt. I think that with that, that does prove. And if you want to check out more of it, check out Oxygen Advantage and Buteyko methods to find out more details on that. Wim Hof does have a great way of helping you cope with air hunger to a degree of letting out as much CO2 as possible. And what that does is that allows you to hold your breath a little bit longer. So if you do have an incidence of, let's say you have to hold your breath underwater, that's a very good idea. Well, you don't want to do that per se, because a lot of the beginners, I don't want to go ahead and say that to do that. But if you do Wim Hof method, you'll see that you have the ability to hold your breath longer, just in general. Right.
Yeah.
And that's because, again, that he is taking out as much CO2 as possible. So you're in a hypocapnic state as opposed to the Buteyko methods, which is more of a hypercapnic state. And again, you're still doing that hypoxic breathing. So again, you're getting yourself in a hypoxic environment, which is the low oxygen levels.
Gotcha.
And so that you can breathe in more, you can sustain it without as much in your body as possible. So a lot of deep sea divers will do that type of method. A lot of guys that go high altitude will work in that range. Like a lot of rock climbers I know do that too as well. A lot of hikers that go up high mountains, they'll work on that too. So, I mean, for fighters, for grapplers, I do believe that it has a place, but again, you also have to make sure that you're training your aerobic system. You have to train all the other energy demands to help improve that. That's kind of like the icing on the cake with the breath work.
Gotcha. Great tips though. So you recommended some supplements earlier for recovery. Is there anything else that you prescribe to your fighters for anything, for strength, for endurance, for recovery that you really believe in?
I mean, sodium in general will definitely help. It helps the contractibility of each muscle. Again, you're looking at from an electrolyte standpoint, you want to make sure that you have plenty of electrolytes. A lot of times people eliminate sodium, and that's kind of the worst thing you can do for your body, especially when you're trying to be strong and have the ability to repeat that energy. Another thing that I like is creatine. Creatine for many different ways. One, obviously, to restore ATP or adenosine triphosphate, the body's natural energy system. And then also, we have seen benefits from a cognitive standpoint. So taking in creatine monohydrate post-training and pre-training, especially if you're a combat sport athlete that takes hits to the head, it will mitigate the onset of traumatic brain injury. So you look at studies done by the ISSN. They've done that. I've actually been a research study. I've done a research study and was one of the guys that they actually researched on, because of the fact that I've had 8 concussions over the years playing college football and then being a professional MMA fighter. We've actually seen increases in cognitive functioning with the supplementation of creatine monohydrate each day for about 10 days. So usually the dosage is around 2.5 to 5 grams post and pre-training. So you can try that. And then collagen. I do like collagen just for bone, muscle, and joint and tendon strength, and also recovery. Fish oils, omega-3s, and then also vitamin D3, K2. I like the D3, K2 mix because it helps with the absorption rate of vitamin D3. So a lot of people lack that. A lot of fighters lack that because they're always in the gyms. They're never outside and never really get a lot of sun unless they're in Florida and then you have that ability. But even then, we've seen studies that show that even Floridians have less vitamin D or have vitamin D deficiency because of the fact that they have it readily available for them and they just don't want to utilize it.
Right.
So we still like to supplement with vitamin D, D3. So those are the supplements that I use. I have that actually, if you look up, if you go to ReviveMD, ReviveSups.com, I actually got the shirt on right now. I have my own stack, my own supplement stack. So you can check that out and get a discount. My discount code is DaruStrong20. So I have a complete stack for recovery, for performance, and it's omega-3s, adrenal fix. So again, it helps with adrenal fatigue. I do have a collagen protein there, omega-3s. I also have a multi-mineral and a multivitamin. That's all in that stack. So it's one of the things I looked at what they had there, and I was like, I like this, I like this, I like this. It's everything that I would take and that would want my athletes to take. I put that in my stack. So check that out if you go to ReviveSups.com.
Perfect, man. We'll include that in the show notes. Speaking of products, you have on your website, you'll have to give us the link, but I know you have like programs specific for grapplers and jiu-jitsu guys. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Well, let's talk about Rolling Strong because we did that together, right?
Yeah.
I think Rolling Strong was something, and it was cool because you came and you shot it with me. We did the whole day pretty much. We got to shoot the shit and actually get to know each other a little bit.
Yep.
Those are like my special exercises that I like to throw in each program. I do have another program called Ground Control, which is solely based on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling, and that's a good program. We've seen tremendous results with that with a lot of the athletes too. I also have an MMA program called Fight Ready, and then I also have a bodyweight program that's been out that's really been killing and helping a lot of people because again they can't get to the gyms because of the pandemic. Yeah. So that's what we call body armor. And so it's an 8-week program solely based on tempos and intensities for AMRAP sets and things of that nature. So we have a high intensity day and then we have a high speed day, which the speed day is more predicated towards plyometrics and ballistics. And then the high intensity day is more of like AMRAP and failure sets with just your body weight. So you don't need much. Only thing I would say is definitely invest in a pull-up bar or something you could put in your door frame because again, you can do as many push-ups as you want. You're going to be, one-sided. So I like to have at least the ability to do some type of pulling movement. So that and bands bands are very easy to get. They're very cheap to get, and they serve a great purpose. I utilize bands on everything, and that by just seeing what we did there.
Yep.
So and then I have. If you're a coach, a strength and conditioning coach that want to learn more about combat sports performance and just in general my methods and principles, you can check out my mentorship course, which is basically it's a 3-month course that you'll go through homework, assignments, and things of that nature. You'll get a certificate of completion at the end of the 3 months, but you have access to the portal for life. So you pay it's $1,000, or we break it up into payments. But you'll have access to all of the information for the rest of your life as long as you want to stay on it. So it's really a good deal. I just wanted to do that to help the coaches out that didn't have the opportunity to understand a lot of things. A lot of the guys overseas don't have the information that we have here in the States.
Yeah. So
I wanted to make sure that they have it. I found out that they couldn't get hands on certain amount of books that I've been able to read or even seminars that couldn't go to that. So that's why I do a lot of things overseas and in other countries. And do a lot of seminars and workshops over there because they just don't have the information readily available for them. So that's something that I like to do. I have about 400, roughly about 350 to 400 coaches in and out of that mentorship course. Wow. And we stay connected on a WhatsApp group. The guys are phenomenal, girls too. They converse not just with me because we have a Q&A every other weekend, but also they converse with each other. Right. So they got guys that are highly skilled, very, have experience in coaching, and they're conversing back and forth with their experiences. So they help each other out just as much as I can help them out. And they help me out too as well. So it's a good community of coaches. So if you want to check that out, it's all on my website, DaruStrong.com.
Nice, man. I feel like there's just so much information out there. And, if you're an athlete, if you're a jiu-jitsu athlete, your focus is on jiu-jitsu. like your job is a strength coach. So you have been able to put in the time, the effort to research all this stuff. So that's nice that you have it all in one place with a nice network of people, like-minded people who can bounce ideas off of. Yeah, we'll definitely link all that in the show notes, man. That's great.
Thanks, bro. Yeah, it's been good. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like my goal, and a lot of people may say, okay, he puts a lot of videos out or he puts a lot of content out. Trust me, I'm coaching. Like I'm coaching like every day, primarily at least 8 hours of the day. I'm coaching. The goal though is for me to have a team that can help us produce the content, put the content out so that I can focus on what I'm good at.
Right.
So don't think that, and I know that I got some flag recently about, one certain individual saying something about me, videoing, all the athletes or whatever the case. At the end of the day, I'm doing that for two reasons. One, I'm doing that so that it can help other individuals that cannot train with me. And two, I'm trying to help the fighter gain more recognition or the athlete due to the fact that of the reach that I can give them. I want people to see their work ethic. I want people to see them outside of the regular training world of, whether it be jiu-jitsu or whether it be, kickboxing, boxing, wrestling. I want to show that in that aspect, because that's just one small piece of the pie when it comes down to physical preparation and preparation for a competition or a fight. So I wanted to showcase that in a way to help everybody out. And it wasn't more, okay, I just want to show that I'm training this individual. I don't need to do that. What I wanted to do was help a person out that didn't have the ability around me or with another coach that could, that visual learning from a video or from an article or from over into the, and luckily, I'm blessed to the fact that I get constant DMs and messages about how the videos, how the articles, how the programs have helped them out tremendously in their own careers. That is something that I was planning to do from the jump. Right. That's something that gives me purpose. So with that, I hope people understand that it's coming from that perspective. It's not coming from me just trying to gain clout on YouTube. So that's just my 2 cents. I want to make sure I get that out.
I mean, everything that I've seen from you, I've learned a ton from you already. And it's inspirational to see these guys in the gym putting in the time and the effort, super inspirational. And then all of the informational material that you put out as well. So, I just think your whole your Instagram account, your YouTube channel is perfect for people who are interested in strength and conditioning, trying to optimize their performance for whatever it is their combat sport is. So that's good stuff, man.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that.
Finally, let's wrap it up. What is the last piece of advice, one piece of advice you would give to a grappler or jiu-jitsu guy with regards to any aspect of strength and conditioning? For mobility, recovery, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, have a system. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses. Be patient and be consistent is really the key about everything, really. That if you're a practitioner, if you're a fighter, it takes you consistent efforts every day, just like you do when you're drilling and you're rolling. If you're a purple belt and up, that it takes consistent grinding, to get to that level. It's the same thing with strength and conditioning. You got to know your strengths, got to know your weaknesses. You got to make sure that you're bringing those up, and you got to be patient in that pursuit and also enjoy the process in that pursuit.
There you go, man. That's great stuff. Well, thank you again. This was awesome. I learned a bunch. I know the listeners are going to take home a ton of info from this. So one last time, where can we find out more about your programs and you, and if you want to learn more?
Yeah, so just go to my website, darustrong.com, and then you can always hit me up on my DM on Instagram. It's darustrong, so DARUSTRONG. That's it.
Awesome, man. Well, stay safe down there, and I wish you the best of luck with the new gym.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
All right.
All right, guys, there you have it. As you can see, Phil is very knowledgeable on strength and conditioning for combat sports. Again, he's worked with some of the best fighters in the world, so hopefully you came away with some things that you can start adding into your game today. If you want to learn more from Phil, check out his website, darustrong.com. As always, we're at seekprogress.com, and we'll have all the show notes from this episode at seekprogress.com/podcast. So we'll be linking to some of the things Phil was talking about, especially the breathing. I think that's one thing that you can start adding in and start working on that's really going to help your performance. So if you guys enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review on iTunes and also like and subscribe on YouTube. And as always, you can check us out at on Instagram at seek.progress. So we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks again for tuning in.